Okay, so if you got ghosts, who do you call? Ghostbusters, right? Maybe the Frighteners? But what if you got monsters? Who do you call? The Monster Squad. Well, here we go, folks. The Monster Squad is a movie from 1987, made for kids, and the kids are the protagonists here. It's basically the Goonies kind of meets Ghostbusters, kind of meets Dracula. A bunch of kids ranging from ages like 6 to 14 get together and fight against Dracula and his minions. And Dracula's minions include things like the Wolfman, the Mummy, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein's monster. It's all these badass monsters against all these kids. They've got a little club called the Monster Squad. Just mostly because they're like interested in movie monsters and stuff, and they know all the lore and they know all the backgrounds and the stories about all these monsters. They just get together to talk about it pretty much every once in a while, and I guess pretend they're fighting monsters. But then Dracula comes back to life in their town, and they've actually got to fight Dracula and the Wolfman and Frankenstein's monster and the Creature from the Black Lagoon. Now, the opening scene of this movie is like set in Transylvania in a couple hundred years ago. Van Helsing himself is fighting Dracula, and they're trying to close this portal or something, or open this portal to suck Dracula into this portal and banish him forever or something. Somehow they fail at this spell, and Dracula wins, I guess, and Van Helsing is no more. Anyway, Dracula escapes. It centers around this like magic amulet that like once every 100 years they can open a vortex to, I don't know, limbo or something like that. Dracula can be stopped and he can be trapped there. Somehow this amulet is lost, and then it eventually shows up in this kid's hometown, and Dracula returns from the grave. There's a pretty cool scene where actually Dracula escapes from his coffin or whatever. They're transporting what they think is this just a dead body, and it turns out it's Dracula in a coffin. And he gets up and he bursts out of his coffin and attacks the pilots and turns into a bat and flies away. Pretty exciting stuff, actually. I mean, the action scenes are really good in here. The monsters they look a little rubbery and a little whatever, but the costumes are like professionally done. Makeup effects and stuff are designed by Stan Winston. Who's worked on like a billion different things, and I'll try and put some of them up on the screen there for you rather than going through them all. And so I like the way that the Wolfman looks, the way that the Creature from the Black Lagoon looks. They're meant to be kind of enhanced, a little scarier than they were back in their old like black and white days, but they're not too scary for kids. They're a little bit goofy looking, and I like that, and it's kind of gives it a more lighthearted tone, as well as how these monsters act, with these kids as well, and how the kids react to them is like, of course, oh my god, this is a horrifying monster, but they're the Monster Squad. They know how to deal with this stuff, right? The kids themselves, I find them actually quite entertaining in this. They act more like real kids, actually, even than the Goonies do. You get your main kid. His name is Sean. He's the leader of the Monster Squad, and he has a little sister named Phoebe that's kind of always trying to join the Monster Squad, that hangs out in the treehouse and says no girls allowed or something, and Sean won't let her join the Monster Squad. Anyway, Sean has a friend named Patrick, and the two key members of the Monster Squad, I guess. Then of course you got Fat Kid, whose real name is Horace. I don't know, they just call him Fat Kid all the time, which seems really... Are you this kid's friend, or Fat Kid gets bullied all the time, and he actually gets saved from the bullies by Rudy. Rudy's like the cool cigarette smoking, leather jacket wearing like 14-year-old or whatever, and he's like the ultimate rebel. Anyway, yeah, so you got Sean, Patrick, Fat Kid, Rudy. There's another kid named Eugene that has a little dog. Can't remember the dog's name. but he's part of the Monster Squad too. Yeah, and little sister Phoebe eventually gets to join the Monster Squad as a key member. The story is it's like, we gotta get the magic amulet, and we gotta, at midnight, perform some ceremony and banish Dracula to the dark dimension or limbo or wherever, and save the town. Because the Wolfman's out there, the mummy is released from the local museum, because of course it just happens to be that exact mummy that happens to be in their exact town. Little Frankenstein's monster gets shipped to Dracula in a crate, and Dracula brings him back to life. But Frankenstein's monster, however, doesn't want to be evil, doesn't want to be part of Dracula's evil plans of, I guess enslaving humanity or being Dracula, right? So Frankenstein's monster ends up he's sent to go kill the Monster Squad, kill them. And he fails at his task because he makes friends with Phoebe, who's not really part of the Monster Squad. She knows who Frankenstein's monster is, and she makes friends with him, and he becomes their ally and helps them fight Dracula. And yeah, this movie is full of a bunch of kid jokes, of course. I mean, there's kids in it, kids in the audience. They want to laugh at stuff that other kids say, so... there's like fart jokes in there, and I mean the humor is as tame as you would expect for I guess a 13 or 14-year-old audience. This movie's rated PG, so you're not going to see a whole lot of gore and stuff, but there is a bit of an edge to it, like a lot of 80s movies have, where things might be a little too scary for kids under 13 or so. I mean, kids today have seen stuff 1,000 times worse than this, but there's maybe a little bit of gory, scary stuff in there. But it doesn't matter. That's not what you're here for. You're here to see kids kicking ass against monsters. And they do, in the end. And they get one up on Dracula, and eventually they win the day. There's some standout scenes that are some of my favorite parts in this movie. Like, for instance, the Wolfman just shows up in this, haunted house or whatever, and... kick him in the nards. He doesn't have nards. And so he kicks him in the crotch, and the Wolfman doubles over in pain. And he's like, Wolfman's got nards. They also enlist the help of Scary German Guy, and the whole scene with him is actually pretty fun. Scary German Guy is, I guess, to them, he's a scary German guy. An old man with a really thick German accent, and they've always been afraid of him. But they have to go and get him to read something that's in German that they can't read. So, of course, he invites the boys in, for pie and everything, and they start to warm up to him, and he's really a nice guy. And as they're leaving, and, they got their translation of their German text or whatever, they say, boy, mister, you sure know a lot about monsters. And the camera pulls into part of his arm here that's got a tattoo from concentration camp. And he says... I certainly do, my son. I don't think a lot of kids at the time would have gotten that reference, but it was just a weird, serious note in the Monster Squad. So that's another good scene. I mean, and then you get your finale where it's a whole bunch of crazy jokes and stuff pop up. For whatever reason, they need a virgin to recite these lines from this text in German. So Patrick's got a sister who has studied German in school, and apparently they think that she'll be able to read it and whatever. And it turns out she's not actually a virgin. And of course, Fat Kid's revenge is the best part of this whole movie. They're being attacked by monsters, and the monsters are all over the town, and there's chaos, and these two kids who, were the ones that bullied Fat Kid earlier, they run into a building, and they close the door, and Fat Kid's trying to get in there, and they're like, let me in, guys, let me in, and they're like, no, and they're all scared of the monsters and stuff. So Fat Kid's out there, and he's got, for whatever reason, he's got a shotgun. The creature from the Black Lagoon is coming in to get him, and I guess eat him or whatever. Fat Kid blows him away with his shotgun. And the kids on the other side of the glass are like, hey, way to go, Fat Kid. And he's like, my name is Horace. Hands down, best part of the movie right there. I mean, this isn't a believable movie. Who cares? This is an entertainment movie. This is a entertainment spectacle. Pro kids, kid power kind of movie. And I like that. And I mean, I saw it when I guess I was like 17 or 18. But it reminded me of, the kind of stuff that I liked when I was a kid, and the Monster Squad, and how they were so into, like, reading about monsters and reading Famous Monsters magazine, which I loved when I was younger. This was more of the filmmakers' kind of childhood on screen, and I really like that. And yeah, like the main kid wears a Stephen King Rules t-shirt. I mean, overall, I really, really liked this movie, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's that fat kid part at the end there, because I've been fat kid and fat adult, so, I can relate to that. It was tough not to rate this one really high, so I'm actually going to go ahead and give it an A-. The minus just because it's like, this is not the kind of movie that would normally entertain me, but going back to watch it, this is only the first time I've seen it since like 1987, 88, and I was amazed how much I really enjoyed this. It's not really my thing, but I laughed my ass off. So, yeah, there you go. A-. So until next time, folks, have a good one, everybody.